Hello YouTube, I'm Andrew Does Hair. You can find my work on Instagram at Andrew Does Hair. In this video, I want to talk about at least one way to become very busy cutting hair. So, a million years ago, right about the time that I started to become very busy myself, I was sitting in a salon meeting. You know, sometimes salons do that. They'll meet together on a day that the shop is closed and just discuss how things are going. And as I'm sitting in this meeting, the owner looks over at me and he goes, "Andrew, you're crushing it. You're killing all the numbers. You're on top with retail, with booking, good job." He wanted to congratulate me in front of everybody, and I'm all embarrassed and stuff. Like, I knew I was doing okay. I knew I was doing pretty good for myself, but I didn't know comparatively, like next to the other stylists, how I was doing. And apparently I was like number one. And so, cool, good for me, great. So I was like super awkward, much like I am right now, even telling this story. But then the owner says, "Do you have any tips? Can you share anything with the rest of us? Like, how are you doing this? How are you consistently staying so booked and selling so much product?" Right there on the spot, I didn't have an answer. I mean, there were things that I knew that I actively had been doing, but I didn't have a neat, clean way to package it up and deliver it and say, "Oh, well, here's how I got busy." So a couple years ago, I started teaching and doing seminars and things and stuff like this, both online and in person at trade shows and events and things. And as I was doing that, I would go into the old memory and think about these pivotal moments in my career as I was making changes to become busy. And I was able to more or less put out kind of a plan on how I did it. And so that's what I want to do with this video, is teach you how I became very busy in hopes that it can help you to become very, very busy. So the first thing you need to do is take the main goal, the big goal, which is become very booked, and set it aside. And what you need to do is find a much smaller goal, a smaller step that you can just repeat over and over and over to work toward that big goal. When I was in my first year ever working in a salon, maybe like first year or two, this is probably like 2004, 2005, I had a brand new client come in. They were a walk-in or something, and our conversation was great. The guy loved his haircut, he tipped well, and he rebooked. And then after he left, I was sitting there with nothing to do because I wasn't busy yet, and I was thinking, man, that was like fish in a barrel. That was so easy. Like that guy rebooked. I just got a good client. And it struck me while I was sitting there. I said to myself, I actually didn't say it out loud, but I thought very clearly, all I have to do is that 200 more times. I just have to have somebody come in and leave glad that they came in, wanting to come back. As simple as that. And so rather than looking at, I need to get a full book of clients, I shrunk it down even smaller. All I needed to do was make sure that everybody who sat in my chair was glad that they did and wanted to come back and do it again. So this client that I was just talking about, he still sees me today, 15 years later, almost, 15 years later. And over the next couple years, after I had that realization and started aiming for that outcome with every single interaction, I don't know if you can see my hands doing that a second ago, it was shaking my whole body. But when I started focusing on having that result with every interaction, with every client, I started finding even smaller goals that helped to kind of more or less guarantee that they were going to be glad they came in and glad to come back. So if our big goal is become fully booked and our small goal is to get there by getting every client who comes in to be glad they came in and glad to want to come back, and we're looking for then even smaller goals to make sure clients feel that way, the obvious answer is do a great haircut. But here's the thing, is obvious answers don't work, because everybody's doing what's obvious and not everybody's busy. So when you have the obvious answer, throw it out. It's also important to note that as far as technical work goes, you can recognize a really good haircut from a perfect haircut, but most clients can't. And so yes, try to do the best haircuts you can do. I'm not saying to skimp on what you can do, but I am saying if your goal is to just be better at cutting hair and that's going to get you busier, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't translate. There are some clients who ultimately really do want a technically profound haircut. That does exist. There are clients who have those expectations. But what that gives them is the feeling of, oh, I'm glad I came here and I'm going to be glad to come back. And our ultimate goal is that feeling, not to do a better haircut. Although sometimes, as I just said, doing a better haircut can help to work toward that goal. So the next couple points I'm going to talk about here are ways to make sure your client is glad that they found you and will be glad to return. So the first thing you're going to need is good conversation. This comes really naturally to some and very not naturally to others. I'm actually a very awkward guy, and it's so hard for me in certain scenarios to talk to people, but I've gotten really comfortable behind the chair. As soon as I put the cape on, I can just talk to anybody. A good conversation isn't necessarily a conversation with more sentences and more words. Like, just because you're talking more doesn't make the conversation better. Sometimes a good conversation is just a few of the right sentences, and that's all it needs to be. So you have to be able to read your client. If you get somebody that comes in and they're a talker, you shut up and you be a listener. If you get somebody that comes in and they seem like a listener, they ask a lot of questions and they're hanging on the words they're saying, you be a talker. And if you get somebody that comes in and they just want to sit quietly and enjoy their haircut, you shut the heck up and you cut their hair. Now, is conversation alone enough to make somebody glad that they met you and glad to come back? Maybe it is. Sometimes with some clients, I would say the conversation is definitely more important than the actual cut itself. I've had those clients. I'm sure you've had those clients. But it's something you need to actively be aware of. You have to make sure your conversations are great. If somebody gets a haircut from you, even if it's a great haircut, but they feel awkward the whole time because you're hard to talk to, they're not going to want to come back. They're not going to be glad they sat there awkwardly for this great haircut, and they're not going to be glad to come back and sit awkwardly again. You got to figure out how to make strangers comfortable as you meet them and get to know them. And of course it comes with time, but if you're not good with it, buy books. There are actually books about it. And here was a big tip that I learned too. Like when I started trying to learn how to be better at conversation, I literally read books on the topic. And I remember doing a haircut for a 14-year-old or 15-year-old who had like his first girlfriend ever. And he was complaining about, she doesn't want to hold my hand at lunch. It's embarrassing. And I remember him telling me about it. And I had cut his hair a few times and I kind of knew this kid. And I actually felt for him. I was like, dude, this kid is bummed. And so I actually literally like knelt down and kind of got eye level with him. And I was like, dude, that sucks. But the point being, good conversation is real conversation. You can't learn to fake it. People know if you're only pretending to listen. So like the best advice that I can give you if you want to be better at conversation is care about the person in your chair. And actually, like when they talk about their dog or their grandma or their girlfriend or whatever they're talking about, work sucks, you need to care about it. This conversation is also really important when it comes to the consultation. You might think if a client comes in and shows you a picture and they say, I want this, and you look at the picture and you go, oh, I could do that. And that's like consultation open, closed. You might think, oh, this is going to be the easiest client ever. But when you do that, you're missing out on an opportunity to dig deeper and to get more in tune with the client's actual needs. I heard a saying one time that I really like. It said, don't give the client what they ask for, give them what they want. And what I found is if somebody shows me a picture, I still look at the picture and I go through every detail and I ask them, see this part here? Do you like that? See this part here? Do you like that? See this part here? Do you like that? And ultimately what I found is somebody will come in and say, hey, give me this. Maybe it's like a short bob or something, right? And then as I talk to them about it, they go, oh, I didn't realize it was that short in the back. I really don't want my neck showing that much. So what they asked for was, I want this short bob in the picture. What they really wanted was, oh, I don't want my neck to show. If you just take the picture like as they first show it to you and you go, cool, I got that, they might end up with a haircut that they don't want. I can't tell you how many times I've had guys show me a picture of a haircut that has kind of I don't want to say sloppy fade, but more of a grown-in fuzzy fade. And when they're looking at it, they don't realize they're not looking at a skin fade. And so when they show me the picture, I say, see these sides, see how it's kind of fuzzy on the edge there? Like, do you want that kind of fuzzy grown-in look, or do you want it like clean? They go, oh, I want it like clean. Like I want it like a bald fade with like a lineup. And that's not what was in the picture. And not that I would hold it against the client for not being able to recognize these details, but I would hold it against the stylist for not opening up the conversation during the consultation to find out what the client really wants. And I would say there are probably tons of cases where simply doing that, asking more questions about the picture they show you, will make them feel like, oh my gosh, nobody's ever dug that deep into what I want for my hair. I'm glad I came here. I'm going to be glad to come back here. I lost count. Oh yeah. So the second thing you need to do is teach them something. It is very, very likely that every person who has ever cut your first-time client's hair before they met you was trying to do the best haircut they could do. I mean, it doesn't seem very improbable, right? Like someone sits in your chair, you do the best haircut you can do. So if your game plan is, well, I'm going to do the best haircut I can do, and that's all you're trying to do, how are you going to be different, right? And so what I found is, especially with men's hair, people don't know a lot about their hair. And I make it a point, every first-time client, I try to teach them something. Whether it's why the hairdryer has a cold button, or how to make their cowlick lay down, or why this square shape might suit their head a little bit better. Whatever it is, if you teach your client something, they're getting a lot more than just a haircut. You're changing their perspective on what their hair can do and what their hair can be. And it's very, very likely that everyone who cut their hair before was doing a good haircut or trying to do a good haircut. But how many of them were sitting them down and saying, this is the best brush for your head and here's why? And having the client leave going, I never knew that. If you can do that, your client goes, I got something I never got before. I'm glad I came here. I'm going to be glad to return. I mean, it's like a pretty obvious known thing in business. Like if you're different, you're going to do good. Like different is is gold these days. Like I heard a saying, I don't know who owns this or trademarked it or said it first, but somebody said better isn't better, different is better. And that is so freaking true. But too often in hair, we think, oh, I'm gonna be different. And then we put graffiti on the side of somebody's head. Being different doesn't necessarily have to be doing weird haircuts. It can be just teaching your clients. That's actually different these days. There are YouTube channels with millions of subscribers just teaching men about their hair, because it's different for the barber or stylist to actually open up and teach those things. So the third thing you're gonna wanna do is aim for a response out of your client that goes like this. I never knew my hair could do that. Or I never knew my hair could look like that. So whether it's how you cut it or how you style it, if you can get somebody to look at their hair and go, I never knew my hair could do that, that is the phrase that pays. You just got a client for life. A good haircut or bad haircut, a haircut lasts a couple weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks maybe. But if you change what somebody knows that their hair can do, you just changed the rest of their life. That is a whole lot more than a haircut. And so often, somebody with curly hair might look at David Beckham's hair and go, oh, I really wish I could have that, but my hair is curly. And if you're the one to teach them, here's how you blow dry it straight. And then they look in the mirror and they go, I didn't know my hair could do that. And I'm telling you that I hear that phrase so often because I aim to hear that phrase, because when somebody says that, they're glad that they met you and they're glad to come back. So get creative with it. I mean, look at your interaction with this client and listen to their hair history, everything they've done with their hair, everything they know about their hair. And you can find so many things to show them that they never knew their hair could do. I mean, come on, for crying out loud, you're a professional barber or hairdresser. Show them something they didn't know their hair could do, and you will get a client for life. Number 4 is to show the client why something is worth buying. Now, this is not to say like, hey, be a salesman, you gotta like up your ticket by getting product on there. It's not about that. What it's about is giving somebody more to care about. If somebody cares an awful lot about their hair, chances are they're already using the great products. Chances are they already own a decent hair dryer. And if somebody doesn't own those things and hasn't dabbled with those things, it's not like a guaranteed thing that they don't care about their hair. It's probably much more likely that they never learned how to make those steps toward caring about their hair. If a client sits in my chair and I blow dry their hair for the first time, then they've never had like a solid blow dry before, and at the end they look in the mirror and they go, I never knew my hair could do that. They're excited now. They're glad they came in. They're like, oh my gosh, I look different than I knew I could look like. And then they'll say, what kind of hair dryer should I buy? So right there on the spot, like I'm not gonna try to make a sale off of them. Like, I mean, if I retailed hair dryers, I'd be like, okay, yeah, just buy this one off of me. But what I often do is I'm like, dude, I'll send you an Amazon link, buy this hair dryer. And what I found is somebody who's gonna put up the money to go buy a new tool or a new product, now they care about their hair. They crossed over that line from not giving so much of a crap about their hair to suddenly they realize it's worth caring about because they see what it can do. And by making it easy for them to buy something, whether it's the product or a comb or a hair dryer, then it's a literal investment into their hair. And this is huge. You can take people who never cared, give them something to care about, and then pave an easy road for them to continue to care about their hair, and it changes lives. It lasts longer than a haircut. And the people who have their whole outlook on their hair changed and then buy a tool to keep upkeeping that outcome, they're glad that they found you and they're glad to come back to you. So if you've been trying to hit all these little goals with every individual client, I guarantee you'll start to see your books fill up. And what's going to happen is as your books fill up, they're not going to fill up with people who just need haircuts. They're going to fill up with people who are diehard fans of you and of your work because of what you know and what they know now because of you and because of how they feel like they're heard when they sit in your chair. And whatever they want from their hair, you're gonna sit and you're gonna talk through it, and they're gonna get exactly what they want. They're gonna know how to style it. They're gonna know which products and tools to use. And essentially, they're never gonna have to worry about their hair again because you care so much about their hair that now they care even more about their hair. And what ends up happening is as your books fill and you're focused on these little micro goals, your main goal needs to change. And so we have our micro goal that we repeat over and over and over. And then eventually, by the time we start getting really booked, you should forget about just trying to be really booked. And you need to have a new big goal. And what this new big goal should be is, I don't care if I'm known for doing good haircuts. I want my clients to be known for having good hair. And if you're doing everything we just talked about, your clients will be known for having good hair. So let me back up a little. When I say good hair, a lot of people have this naive assumption that good hair is simply a genetic trait. You either are born with great hair or you're not. And in fact, I get a lot of comments on my Instagram I've gotten over the years, you only post people who have naturally great hair. Here's the thing, they don't look like that when they come in. They have hair that looks like it was naturally great because it's been cut well, it's been styled well, and then because they care about their hair and they bought the tool and they know how to use it, on a day-to-day basis, they're out there looking like that and having great hair. And so I imagine it like this. Like if let's say you're a company that makes leather jackets, you don't want your customer to be wearing your leather jacket and have someone go, oh man, you look like you bought a cool leather jacket. No, you want your customer to be out and have someone go, dude, you got great style, right? And so with hair, you gotta get rid of the goal of, hey, you got a really great haircut. I mean, that's gonna happen because you're really great at hair, but ultimately your goal should be, dude, you have great hair. And you don't have to be born with certain genetics to have great hair. You would be surprised, like just about everybody can have great hair if they put the right effort into it. And you need to be that stylist or barber who cares so much about every individual client's hair and needs that you're able to bring out their good hair. And it doesn't come from a jar, by the way. But when you make that your main goal, what ends up happening is these clients who now care a whole lot about their hair because of all the things you've given them, when they go to work or church or band practice or whatever else they go out and do, people around them start to know, this guy always has good hair. And that's how you get even more new clients. And eventually you get a reputation, not for being, I mean, people might say, oh, you do great haircuts, but really you're growing exponentially because your clients have great hair. I don't know if all that makes sense. I hope it does, because that's what I aim for. Like, I don't care if anyone thinks I'm good or bad at cutting hair, but I do care that every client that leaves my chair is getting compliments on their hair style. Not on, oh, you look like you got a great haircut, but dude, you have great style. Anyways, I hope this was helpful. And if you liked it, please like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I don't usually do this, but if you got something out of this video, I just ask, share it with somebody. It could really, really help the channel a lot. This is something I've been trying to do the last few months, and it would be nice to watch it grow a little bit. So if you got something out of this and you know somebody who might get something out of it, please just share it. Thank you.